Alright, so welcome back to the cockpit, and we have passed 10,000 feet, so at this point what we need to do is put the landing lights on, the runway turn-offs, the wing lights, the nose lights to take off, the strobe lights on, beacon lights on, logos would also be on, see what signs would have to be on. They should really be on at top of descent though. I've put myself into a little bit of a vector, so I am manually controlling my heading at this point, and I'm basically just going to vector myself to the ILS at this point, due to conditions that arised. So I've basically selected the heading on there for 96 degrees, and yeah, you can of course change that. Of course you've got to pull it to engage that. Pushing that in won't do anything, so you've got to pull it to engage the heading mode. Speed's all good, so I'm letting the plane manage that, and rate of descent, it's in vertical speed mode because I have put myself into a vector. So it doesn't know what rate of descent to put me at, so I'm also controlling my rate of descent at this point. So I'm going to get myself right down to 3,000 feet, which is ILS interception altitude, because there's no constraints which the plane is making me aware of, or the charts. So I'm just going to get right down to 3,000 feet. And at this point I'm going to double check that my ILS frequency has been tuned correctly, so I'm going to go to Nav Aids. And as you can see, the ILS has been tuned correctly. 109.1 is nicely tuned. With the ILS, with it being classed as an ILS, which is correct. So that's all good. Our ILS is tuned. At this point, we could put our landing system lights or landing system buttons on. That'll engage the landing system. And as you can see, our landing system has engaged correctly, and it's flashing as ILS. Of course, we aren't on the ILS yet because I'm vectoring myself, but it's all ready for when we are going to be. Through 5,000 feet we will need to be on the local QNH. I'm going to keep it at 5,000 feet on the heading now because there's no need to descend further at this point. 1025 for the air pressure, so I'm going to pre-select that, as you can pre-select your QNH in the A380, unlike other Airbuses where you can't. Just cough the A320. It's flashing the standard barometric pressure. That's because it knows that it needs to be changed. It's sort of like a warning to you. So when it needs to be changed, push it in or up, or the up arrow in other cases. Just got to get down to the ILS really now. So keeping it at 5,000 feet, we're going to go direct to Charlie Oscar Lima. So clicking on that. From position, direct to, insert it, and we're going to go direct to the Charlie Oscar Lima waypoint, and that will then disengage our manual head and select, and it will bring us down. And at this point I'm going to put myself down to 3,000 feet on the heading, and I'm going to use that in managed mode because we're now back on the flight plan route. Spoilers should be armed at this point. You could start getting flaps up and flaps down now. We are 20 miles out from the runway at this point. According to the landing system, auto brake is set, landing lights are all on, wing lights are on, strobes are on, beacons are on, seatbelt signs are on. We're pretty much good to go. Spoilers are armed, of course. It's just really flaps that we need to do at this point. So yeah, let's get descended. At this point you could realistically go and mess with the go around, which is GA, but really for a beginner I wouldn't worry about that. Do that in another tutorial I suppose. Of course here we need to activate the approach phase. I'll only do that once we are at the closing nearby of the ILS. Otherwise it'll just put us into final approach mode. And right, so we're about lined up with the waypoint. I'm going to activate the approach phase. You realistically want to do that as early as possible, but not too early, otherwise your speeds and altitudes will be, see, the speed was just at 260 knots, but now it's gone right down because I've activated the approach phase. You want to do it when you're approaching the ILS, but not insanely far out. Just when you're sort of closing in on it. I'm 15 nautical miles out from it. About there is good enough. You know, it's not too early, but it's also not too late. I'm going to put flaps 1 now to help with our speed. And I'm going to arm the localizer by clicking on localizer, and it should come up on blue below nav on the leftmost PFD screen. See, Alt Star has now been engaged because we are at the altitude we've set, but that's ILS interception altitude, so that's all we need to do. Any lower and we will be flying incorrect altitudes. And glide slope may not capture correctly, which is not what we want. Flaps 2. I am using my own flaps thing, so if you don't have that, just use the lever, of course. Flaps 3. Alright, so I'm going to activate approach phase now. Waiting. Approach phase has been armed. As soon as glide slope and localizer have been engaged and unarmed, I will set flaps to full. Okay, localizer has been engaged. Flaps full. Once we start getting to 2,500 feet, I will put the gear down. Glide slope is coming up because that diamond. If the diamond's lowering, that means it's working. If it's rising, then it means it's you're too high. And you're not on profile, so you will have to sort that out. See, glide slope's engaged by the PFD screen. So at this point, I'm going to get the gear down. 2,500 feet, no later. So auto brake is set, spoilers are armed, flaps are full, lights are on, landing gear's down, and yeah, we're all good. Landing checklist complete. Could take the autopilot off at any point. Just disengage it about 500 feet, maybe 250 feet above the runway. No later. 5,000 feet, wasn't it? 5,000 feet for the go-around altitude. And you can see the plane shouldn't climb to 5,000 feet, and if it does, then glide slope wouldn't be engaged. Because glide slope is engaged, that is descending us. It's not listening to the plane's altitude at this point. It is just listening to the glide path. It's just descending on a 3-degree glide path at the moment, as stated on the charts. The runway should be in sight in a moment. So we're at 1,000 feet. It can't be far off. Keeping my hands on the throttle and side stick now, ready to take the autopilot off. On the Airbus, the auto throttle should get you down enough. Yeah. I'm going to take the autopilot off now. I'm coming up to 500 feet. Making acknowledgement of the PAPIs, making correction as needed. As soon as I hit 20 feet, you're going to put the thrust to idle. You don't have to touch the thrust until you get to 20 feet. It says we're too high, but I disagree. Okay. Well, 20 feet, you're meant to put it to a thrust to idle, and once you've touched down, you'd put the reverse thrust down. And then the auto brakes will engage, because they should have been armed. But if your callouts weren't working, like mine didn't, then you will not know. So ensure you look at your PFD screens, and as soon as you're slow enough, below 60 knots, you can disengage the auto brake and put it right to the disarm position. And yeah, you can use manual braking from there. And here we are. You have landed the plane, the A380, at your arrival airport. So at this point, we need to find a gate to park at. I'm not sure what gates are permitted for the A380 here, so you'll have to bear with me. You see there's a warning there, but that's just autopilot, which is all good. So we can clear that by clicking that button there. The clear button is just there. Any ECAM warnings, you clear just like that. I believe this is correct. No? It should be. There should be an exit here. Well, Navigator tells me one thing. Well, I can only go this way, so, well, I'm going to have to. You would realistically follow taxiways, but, you know. Doesn't always permit, does it? So once you've vacated the runway, and that is only when the whole plane has crossed that runway hold point line, that line there, only at that point can you get the landing lights off and the chrono off. Stop the chrono, get the landing lights off. Runway turn-offs go to taxi now, not off, because you are taxiing, of course. Strobe lights can come off, beacons can come off, wing lights, of course, off. And at this point, you can start cleaning up the aircraft, get the spoilers disarmed, get the flaps up again. And yeah, you are getting configured to get to the gate. Slightly wet down in Cologne, but that's all good. At this point, you just taxi into the gate. You start the APU, master switch, wait 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Start the APU by the start button, just like we did at the start of the tutorial series. Wait for the APU to start, and then we can use APU power once we're at the gate. I will see you when we reach the gate. See you then. Alright, so we're coming into the gate now. This is Delta 60. Once the EFB comes at about in line with the line, go full tiller in the direction you want to turn. In that case it was right. See there, our APU is available. That means as soon as we park we can turn off the engines and get the APU power on. It's all ready for us. And just sort of guide it in. There we go. That'll do. So parked, parking brake on. APU bleed can come on. Engines can come off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Taxi lights can come off. Nav lights can now come. Well, keep the nav lights on. Seatbelt signs can come off. Now the engines are powered off. Signs can come off. Fuel pumps can come off. All these fuel pumps. All these fuel pumps. There we go. They're all off. So at this point we just deboard the aircraft. And yeah, it's in a nice turnaround state at this point. You could get external power on by this point as well, by going to ground services, ground power unit, and wait until that's connected. When it's connected, the external power lights will light up in green to show that they are available. So the external power is now available, so we can turn those on. And we can also save fuel now by turning the APU bleed off and the APU off, because now we are powered by external power. So that is going to do it for this tutorial series. If you have enjoyed it, then do let me know. And if you have any questions, then let me know in the comments section down below. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Hopefully this whole tutorial series was useful to you, and I hope to expand on this tutorial series in times to come with go-arounds and things like that. So without further ado, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.